Hello, and welcome to the review of procedure MG-O-004. Today, we will cover procedures related to reconsenting research subjects. Before we begin, it is important to address why this procedure is important to clinical research. The purpose of this procedure is to establish a consistent method for reconsenting research subjects. Please note that reconsent is a part of the informed consent process, which is an ongoing process that does not conclude with the initial signing of the informed consent documents. The process begins when subjects need to be informed of additional study-specific information that might affect their willingness to continue to participate in the study. Reconsent could also be required if a participant does not seem to comprehend the study. Reconsenting is a key element of research with human subjects, especially in vulnerable populations. As such, it is important to identify those who are responsible for the process's correct implementation. The scope of this procedure applies to all individuals and designated research staff who have the responsibility for obtaining and documenting informed consent from living individuals involved in human subject research or their legally authorized representative.
Throughout this presentation, there are many key terms that will be utilized. Informed consent process, reconsenting, and reconsent required are three definitions in particular that require some special attention. The informed consent process is discussed in greater detail in procedure MG-O-004.04, titled Informed Consent Process and Documentation. Reconsenting is when a study team notifies subjects if new information related to a study becomes available, new risks are identified, significant study alterations are made, or the initial consent process was inadequate.
Reconsent require relates to the use of Encore. When an amendment results in an updated consent form, a checkbox in Encore is used to indicate a reconsent requirement for enrolled subjects, causing an RR superscript to appear next to each subject's name in the CRA console until the subject has been reconsented. Additional terms that will not be defined in this training include institutional review board, investigator, legally authorized representative, Encore, principal investigator, and research. If you are unfamiliar with any of these terms, please take a moment to pause this video and visit the MedStar Georgetown Glossary to obtain the definition of the unfamiliar terms. Reconsenting is a key element of research with human subjects. As such, it is important to identify those who are responsible for the process's correct implementation. The principal investigator and designated research staff are responsible for understanding and following the basic tenets and regulations regarding informed consent as outlined in procedure MG-O-004.04. If you have not yet viewed this procedure, it is highly encouraged for you to please review informed consent process and documentation before continuing this procedure. In the first part of this procedural review, we have introduced the purpose, scope, and responsibilities. We are now going to transition into discussing reconsenting research subjects' procedures. Throughout the lifetime of a study, it is natural that new findings can alter a protocol or informed consent document, especially if new risks are identified. Federal regulations do not specifically use the word reconsent, but require that research subjects be informed of any new significant findings identified during the course of the research, which may impact the subject's willingness to continue participation. The Institutional Review Board of Record must be informed of a minor or significant protocol change, which may require reconsenting. Working closely with the IRB is key to ensuring the reconsent process is satisfied. The IRB of record is responsible for approving or modifying the method of subject communication and must approve all consent forms and processes. The extensiveness and method of the reconsenting process will depend upon a number of factors, such as whether the new information may impact a subject's willingness to continue with study participation, related to risks or safety of subjects, a significant change from what was previously disclosed or explained to subjects, and impacts all groups or a subset of study subjects. The IRB of record carries the responsibility for approving subject-facing materials and communication. It is very important to not self-determine if reconsent is required. Always refer to the IRB to make the determination of reconsent requirements. Let's take a moment to review some examples of what constitutes what the IRB could consider a significant or minor change to the study. Examples of a significant change to a study include additional risks were identified, or new safety information is available, even after study closure. There are changes to what subjects are asked to do, such as extending the duration of a study participation, additional study visits or activities, or additional sample collection. The study drug was originally to be given in a randomized double-blind fashion, but is now going to be open label. Drug dosing or schedule has significantly changed, such as a new drug that was initially going to be administered by IV now requires a central line. Biospecimens stored for unknown biomarkers will now be used for genetic testing. Additional procedures will be done, particularly those that are high risk or invasive, and the principal investigator has changed. Examples of a minor change to a study include quantity of specimen collected is modified and does not pose an additional risk, such as a study required 5 cc's of blood but now requires 10 cc's of blood. Changes to surveys, unless new questions pose risks, such as questions about illegal activity or other sensitive topics, and minor changes to follow-up visits, such as a follow-up visit originally scheduled in office will now occur via telephone. When research staff submits an amendment or reportable event with new information to the IRB, the submission should include a reconsent plan or a rationale for not informing subjects if notification is not planned. If the research staff has included a reconsent plan, there are several items that must be addressed. These include who will be notified or reconsented, what is the change that requires communication, when must notification or reconsent occur to protect the subject's safety and rights, where and how should notification be implemented, specific procedures for the conduct and management of recontacting and/or reconsenting, including steps to ensure confidentiality, a copy of the proposed recontact letter, telephone script, revised informed consent form, or other proposed materials, and any other relevant information. Remember that reconsent is a process. This figure represents a brief overview of the informed consent process, including introduction, explanation, comprehension, question and answer, and consent. When conducting reconsent that includes direct communication with the study subject, these principles should be followed. Each step is covered in detail in the Informed Consent Process and Documentation Procedure MG-O-004.04. All informed consent process components that we will discuss assumes that you have a clear understanding of these steps. If you are unsure about any of these 5 elements, please take a moment to review the procedure before continuing. There are some steps that must be taken to assure appropriate reconsent documentation. Regulatory coordinators and/or clinical research coordinators will upload the current version of the IRB-approved informed consent document for each institution of record participating in the study following department processes to Encore. The consent form will be searchable using the document search in Encore. When an amendment results in an updated consent form, ensure the checkbox in Encore is used to indicate a reconsent required. An RR superscript will appear next to each subject's name in the CRA console until the subject has been reconsented. Regardless of the process used to reconsent subjects, the study team should document completion of the IRB-approved plan in the study records or electronic health record. The guideline titled MG-O-4GL1, Using MedConnect Autotext and Power Forms for Documentation, provides a template for documenting the re-consent process in the electronic health record. The same text can be used for a narrative note, which should be filed together with the consent form in the study binder.
In summary, the purpose of reconsenting is to ensure subjects are informed of additional study-specific information that might affect their willingness to continue participation in the study. The IRB determines reconsent requirements. Be sure to ensure all reconsent documents and the reconsent plan are IRB approved. Throughout this video, guidance on IRB requirements and considerations and reconsent plan requirements was provided. Finally, additional consent signing and documentation requirements were discussed.
This concludes the overview of procedure MG-O-004 on reconsenting research subjects. If you would like more information on Joint GU-MHRI procedures, please visit the website shared on the screen or visit MedStar Starport. Take care.